All right, it's 1:03. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Naveen Habib. I am the Associate Deputy Director for the Solutions for Congested Corridors program here at the California Transportation Commission. If you are joining us today, you're here for the 2026 Solutions for Congested Corridors program guidelines hearing for the Northern California and San Joaquin Valley. I am joined today by our chair, Commissioner Clarissa Falcon, who will be chairing this meeting, and I'm also joined by Paul Golozowski, who's our executive director. No, chief deputy director. I'm sorry, I get titles mixed up. But Paul is here today with us, and then we also have Matthew Yoscott, who is the deputy director of Senate Bill 1 programming. As a reminder, anytime we say we or us, we are referring to commission staff on today's call. And I will now turn it over to our chair to kick us off.
Thank you, Naveen. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Northern California and San Joaquin Valley public hearing on the proposed 2026 guidelines for the Solutions for Congested Corridors program, or commonly referred to by its acronym SCCP. Today's hearing is being held in accordance with Streets and Highways Code, Section 2396A, which requires the California Transportation Commission to conduct one public hearing in Northern California and one in Southern California before the guidelines go before the Commission for adoption. Today's hearing fulfills the Northern requirement, which also includes the San Joaquin Valley. We will be holding the Southern hearing at our August 20th Commission meeting in San Diego, my home region, as part of the hearing agenda. So, why are we here and why SCCP? California has some of the most congested transportation corridors in the nation. This program exists because congestion is not solved by any one agency, nor any one mode, or any one project. It is addressed when regions come together to plan comprehensive multimodal corridors, understands how people actually travel, and deliver integrated transportation solutions. The legislature created this program through Senate Bill 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017, and it invests approximately $250 million each year to help regions deliver exactly that kind of collaborative multimodal investment. Over the first 4 funding cycles, the Commission has programmed 33 projects representing more than $2.5 billion in Solutions for Congested Corridors program investments. In the most recent cycle alone, approximately $482.9 million in state funding leveraged more than $13.5 billion in local, regional, and federal investment supporting more than 180,000 jobs. Those numbers are important, but what matters most is what they make possible across California. For example, we are extending commuter rail to Healdsburg in Sonoma County, supported a corridor program in Santa Cruz County that pairs bus-on shoulder service with coastal bicycle and pedestrian connections, and begun modernizing train control across San Francisco's entire Muni metro system. Different regions, different modes, one common goal, delivering a safe and accessible transportation system shaped by the people who rely on it every day. Today, we are focused on the program's 5th cycle. The proposed guidelines establish the rules for how the next round of funding will be awarded, and they are the product of 7 months of public work, 7 workshops, 30-hour office hour sessions, and consultation with the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee, the California Department of Transportation, the California Air Resources Board, the California Department of Housing and Community Development, the California Workforce Development Board, regional agencies, advocates, and stakeholders across the state. The guidelines were developed in close coordination with the agencies and individuals who build these corridors and the people who travel on them. Many of the meaningful improvements reflected in this draft came directly from those conversations. Today's hearing is another opportunity for us to listen and receive additional feedback before the Commission considers adoption on August 20th. So before turning the hearing back to Naveen, I would like to take this opportunity to express on behalf of my colleagues on the commission our respect and gratitude to the staff of the California Transportation Commission, and most notably our SB1 team led by Matthew Yazgat, Deputy Director of SB1 Programming, as well as our SB1 Program Managers, Naveen Habib, whom you will be hearing from in a moment, Beverly Newman Burkhart, Lashara Ward, and Kayla Giese, as well as the rest of the SB1 team, for their dedicated efforts to prepare all the updates to the SB1 program's guidelines. And they are now out for public review. So finally, I would like to thank all of you who have participated in our workshops and taken advantage of our staff's office hours to provide input that have informed the development of all the Cycle 5 guidelines. So thank you. And with that, I will stop talking and I will now turn it over to our Associate Deputy Director, Naveen Habib.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate your comment. And we will dive into the Solutions for Congested Corridors Program Guidelines presentation at this point. Before I do, I'm going to cover a few housekeeping items. In the chat, I have shared a few links. The first link is to the hearing materials that are included with this agenda and the presentation that you're sharing projected onto your screen. These are both posted on the Commission's website today. All materials and recordings for all previous SCCP workshops are posted on the program webpage on the Commission's website under the Workshops drop-down menu. And then all materials and recordings for all CTC workshops, including all SB1 workshops we have hosted that Chair Falcon just covered with you all, are posted on the Commission's website as well under CTC Workshops page. So those links are up there in the chat. If you have not had a chance to review them, please go ahead and do so at your convenience. And I will cover a few additional housekeeping items before we dive into the presentation. As a reminder, this is a virtual hearing and it is being recorded. Each attendee is registered with a unique webinar access link. Please do not share that link. It is associated with your individual registration, and sharing it may cause access issues and create confusion for Commission staff during this session. There are two icons in your webinar control panel. You may use the raise hand feature to make a public comment, use the Q&A feature to submit a written comment, and Commission staff will read your comment aloud during the meeting. Public comment will be taken during the hearing segment that follows my presentation. You will have 2 minutes to make public comment if your comments are oral comments. If your comments are submitted using the Q&A feature, I will read them out loud so that we may respond to them live. If you plan to make a comment or ask a question, please begin by stating your full name and your organization. If you have more than one question, please share them one at a time so that we may address each question in full. We will address all comments in the order that they are received. This presentation and the recording will be posted on the Commission's website after the hearing. So one quick note at the top, this is the Northern California hearing, which also covers the San Joaquin Valley for the proposed 2026 Solutions for Congested Corridors Program Guidelines. Because we are hosting it virtually, it is open statewide. A Southern California hearing will be held at the August 20th Commission meeting, where I will present a condensed version of this presentation before the Commission considers the guidelines for adoption. Before we turn to the proposed changes, here is a brief refresher on the program. The Solutions for Congested Corridors program is a competitive program established in 2017 by Senate Bill 1. $250 million are appropriated annually from the state highway account to fund projects that reduce congestion in heavily traveled corridors. Regional transportation planning agencies, county transportation commissions, and the California Department of Transportation, or Caltrans, are eligible to nominate projects. To be eligible, a project must be included in a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan and in a regional transportation plan. Within metropolitan planning organization boundaries, the project must also be consistent with an approved sustainable community strategy. This program funds only the construction phase of a capital project, and every nomination must demonstrate independent utility, environmental clearance, and a complete and committed funding plan. Projects must deliver measurable performance improvements that balance mobility, community, and environmental outcomes. Across the first 4 cycles, the Commission has programmed 33 projects and more than $2.5 billion in program funds. The 2026 program is the 5th cycle and will provide 2 years of funding in fiscal years 2027-28 and 2028-29 for a total of $549,555,000. The Commission develops program policy through a public guidelines development process. Program guidelines establish the policy, standards, and procedures for the development, adoption, and management of the Commission's programs. They address statutory requirements, incorporate stakeholder input, and include Commission procedures for programming and project delivery. Once adopted, the guidelines govern project selection and program implementation for the cycle. Staff developed these proposed guidelines through an open public process and in consultation with the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee, the California Department of Transportation, the California Air Resources Board, the California Department of Housing and Community Development, the California Workforce Development Board, regional transportation planning agencies, local agencies, advocates, and other stakeholders. Pursuant to Senate Bill 1, the Commission must provide proposed guidelines to the Joint Legislative Budget Committee and to the Transportation Policy Committees in the Senate and the Assembly at least 30 days before adoption. We submitted these draft guidelines to the legislature on July 20th. This is the proposed timeline for the fifth cycle. If you have joined us at previous workshops, this is not your first time seeing it. We held a kickoff workshop in November 2025, followed by 4 additional workshops through May 2026. 2 of those were program-specific, and 2 were standalone sessions on workforce development and on advancing equity and community engagement across the Senate Bill 1 programs. We then held 2 additional standalone workshops on July 15th, one on delivery methods in the morning and one on efficient land use and housing in the afternoon. We also hosted 30 virtual office hour sessions from February through May 2026 to provide technical assistance on project nominations. All workshop materials and recordings are posted on the Commission's website, which I also posted in chat just earlier. We are now in the summer 2026 phase on this timeline. Following today's hearing and the Southern California hearing, the Commission will consider adopting the proposed guidelines at the August 20th meeting, which also initiates the call for projects. Project nominations are due in fall this year on November 19th, I believe, and program adoption is anticipated in summer 2027. As noted on the slide, the timeline and the program period are tentative and may be subject to changes. A brief reminder on the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan Requirement, or CMCP, which is unique to this program. A nominated project must be identified in a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan prepared in accordance with the Commission's 2025 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan guidelines. The Commission adopted the updated guidelines in December 2025, and they are posted on the Commission's website. Applicants must also submit a comprehensive multimodal corridor plan self-certification form with each project nomination. The form is provided in Appendix B of the 2026 program guidelines, and we made minor clarifying updates this cycle to align it with the 2025 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan guidelines. Agencies are responsible for determining whether their plan is current and consistent with the Commission's guidelines. We generally recommend revisiting a plan every 4 to 5 years to assess whether an update is warranted. If corridor conditions or assumptions have changed meaningfully, the agency should evaluate whether an update is appropriate. Please contact us directly if you have any specific questions. I will now turn to the proposed updates. I will cover these changes broadly because each update was already presented and discussed in detail at a public workshop previously. We will begin with sections 12 and 13, which address delivery methods and project segmenting. We presented these updates at the July 15th, 2026 workshop, and the slides and recording are available on the Commission's website. The proposed updates do 2 things. First, they clarify the process for projects using alternative delivery methods, including design build, progressive design build, and construction manager general contractor or CMGC. Second, they establish a consistent project segmentation standard across all the Senate Bill 1 programs. We refined the language after the workshop based on stakeholder feedback. The updates confirm that projects using alternative delivery methods follow the existing programming and allocation process, and that a final engineer's estimate is provided before the construction phase allocation. I will not read the following slides, which illustrate the proposed updates to the delivery methods and project segmenting sections in bold red. Only one reminder, as noted in the first sentence on this slide, this is slide 10, we note that projects may use alternative delivery methods in accordance with the statutory authority applicable to the implementing agency and the mode being delivered. Please note that these guidelines do not grant or restrict contracting authority. Each implementing agency is responsible for confirming and operating under its own authority for its project. This is slide 11. Again, changes are in bold red. And then slide 12, which covers project segmenting. Again, changes are in bold red. As presented at the July 15th, 2026 workshop and pursuant to the June 26, 2026 Executive Order N726, Order Number 5, we amended the accessibility evaluation criterion in section 17.2.2 to emphasize the delivery of first mile and last mile connectivity to transit infrastructure. The criterion continues to ask applicants to address current accessibility issues in the corridor, how the project improves accessibility and connectivity for residents and non-residents, and how the project provides access to multimodal choices. The amended question now asks whether the project will close an existing gap in transit and active transportation or promote first mile and last mile connectivity to transit infrastructure. The remaining elements of the criterion are unchanged. Again, you can see the change in bold red on the slide. This is slide 13. Moving on to slide 14, section 17.2.3 addresses community engagement. We hosted a standalone workshop on advancing equity and community engagement in April 2026, and the slides and recording are posted on the Commission's website. There were two focus areas. First, the community engagement evaluation criterion, where we added sub-questions that help applicants describe collaboration with community-based organizations and identify targeted community benefits. Second, the Senate Bill 1 program's Transportation Equity Supplement, where we added a tribal engagement resources section and additional examples of engagement strategies and equity benefits. We collaborated with the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee to make these changes. All revisions are reflected in the draft guidelines that were posted in June. No additional changes were made to this section. Moving on to slide 15, section 17.2.4 addresses economic development and job creation and retention. We hosted a standalone workshop on workforce development and job quality in March 2026, and the slides and recording are posted on the Commission's website. We collaborated with our commissioners, the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee, the California Workforce Development Board, and our stakeholders to expand the criterion language that already exists in the Senate Bill 1 guidelines. The criterion is now organized in two parts. The first part addresses workforce development and outreach during project development and construction. The second part addresses outcomes and community impact after construction. All revisions were reflected in the draft guidelines posted in June. No additional changes were made to this section. Moving on to slide 16. Section 17.2.6 addresses efficient land use and housing. We presented these updates at the July 15th, 2026 workshop in the afternoon, and the slides and recording are posted on the Commission's website. Commission staff worked with the California Department of Housing and Community Development on two items. We updated the Land Use Efficiency and Pro-Housing Supplement, which is now Appendix E, to provide clearer indicators of efficient land use, current examples of transportation-focused pro-housing policies, and updated resources to support applicant responses. And on slide 17, which you see projected right now, we clarified and reorganized the existing criterion so that it aligns with the supplement. The bold red language in the criterion continues to ask applicants to describe how projects support and advance transportation-efficient land use and pro-housing policies. Moving on to slide 18, consistent with Commission Resolution G2531, we incorporated Strategy 2.4 of the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, or CAPTI, into Section 18, which is Programming Funds. The language states that the program will target a vehicle miles traveled neutral suite of investments by continuing the existing practice of prioritizing projects that reduce vehicle miles traveled. Please note that this addition does not change how individual projects are evaluated, and this program will continue to prioritize projects that reduce vehicle miles traveled as it does today. This update was reflected in the draft guidelines posted in June. No additional changes were made to this section. And moving on to slide 19, We amended the submittal requirements in Appendix A. Project nomination packages, including all attachments and appendices, must be submitted as remediated PDFs that are compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, and fully accessible to users of assistive technology, including screen readers. Nominations that are not submitted in an accessible format will be returned to the applicant for remediation and resubmission. Failure to remedy accessibility issues by the deadline established by Commission staff may result in a nomination being deemed incomplete. We have provided resources to support you. The intent is straightforward. Everyone who interacts with these documents, including members of the public living with disabilities, should be able to access them fully. This update was reflected in the draft guidelines posted in June. No additional changes were made to this section. Finally, please note that we are now closing guidelines development. This hearing is one of your final opportunities to provide feedback before the Commission considers the guidelines for adoption in August. If you have comments, please submit them as soon as possible. You may email them to me directly or to the program inbox at sccp@catc.ca.gov. As I mentioned earlier, the Southern California hearing will be held at the August 20th Commission meeting, where I will present a condensed version of this presentation before the guidelines are recommended for adoption. All hearing and workshop materials will be posted on the Commission's website. This presentation is the result of 7 months of workshops, work groups, office hours, and debriefs where Commission staff collaborated with stakeholders to prepare these guidelines responsibly. My thanks to the Senate Bill 1 program team, to our colleagues on the planning, engineering, and executive teams, to the Interagency Equity Advisory Committee, and to our partners at Caltrans, the California Department of Housing and Community Development, the California Workforce Development Board, and the California Air Resources Board. And to every stakeholder who joined a workshop or an office hour to share feedback, thank you. This concludes the presentation of the proposed 2026 Solutions for Congested Corridors Program Guidelines at the Northern California hearing, which also covers the San Joaquin Valley. I will now turn it back over to Chair Falcon.
Thank you, Naveen. Now you can take a breath. We will now open the hearing for public comment. This time of the hearing is yours. When you are acknowledged, please begin by stating your name and organization for the record. Now, if you are experiencing technical difficulties, please email Commission staff at sccp@catc.ca.gov. Let me repeat that, sccp@catc.ca.gov. And with that, we'll give it a moment for folks to raise their hand if you choose to make any comment. And welcome to those who just jumped in.
There are no questions in the Q&A and no raised hands as of now. We can give it another minute or two. Otherwise, we will move to close.
Sounds good.
Chair, there are still no questions or comments received and no raised hands in the attendees list.
Okay, very good. Well, with that, I'm going to thank everyone again who joined us today and shared your perspectives. I would also again like to thank Commission staff for the tremendous work that has gone into developing these proposed guidelines and facilitating this very robust public process. Today's hearing does not conclude the public comment process. Written comments may continue to be submitted to sccp@catc.ca.gov. And just to reiterate what was mentioned earlier, that we will also hold the Southern California hearing in San Diego on August 20th before the Commission considers adoption of the proposed guidelines. And with that, this concludes the Northern California and San Joaquin Valley public hearing on the proposed 2026 Solutions for Congested Corridors program guidelines. And thank you all for your participation. Have a great summer, and we'll see some of you in San Diego on August 20th and 21st. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.